really making a conscious effort to focus on our military. To me, they're one of the main reasons why I have the freedom of being Miss Arizona USA.
Trump has appointed Erika Kirk to the Air Force Academy's Board of Visitors. Now, I have a hunch, a growing hunch, that Erika and Jeffrey Epstein may have crossed paths.
Is there anything specific that Turning Point can do to combat anti-Semitism?
Yeah, so we're all of our college campus and high school campuses. We have these conversations. We have Shabbat dinner happening at AmFest.
Because even though she was his Mossad handler and probably had him killed, no marriage is perfect.
The internet is on fire right now with a claim that has people genuinely stopping in their tracks. Online investigators are pointing to evidence suggesting Erika Kirk may be operating as an asset for a foreign nation. And the conversation exploded the moment people discovered she had secured a leadership position connected to the U.S. Air Force Academy. Because here's the part that immediately raised every alarm. Public records show zero military service, zero academy training, and no documented background in defense programs or military education oversight. None, and yet somehow, she landed that seat. People across every platform are asking the same blunt, unavoidable question. How does someone with that specific resume end up in that specific position? According to a recent investigation by Candace Owens, the answer might run considerably deeper than the official explanation suggests. The report claims Erika has connections tied to a foreign nation that has faced repeated accusations of running intelligence operations against American citizens and institutions for decades. Critics also point to the velocity of her rise within Charlie's world, describing how she entered his inner circle and then, within days of his death, found herself running the entire organization he had spent years building. And now, on top of that, she appears to have influence over operations and curriculum connected to one of the most prestigious military institutions in the United States. So people online are asking the obvious question out loud.
Living in China and doing a lot of work with the victims from trafficking, work with a orphanage in Romania.
Does any of this sound like an ordinary traditional wife who claimed to barely know who Charlie Kirk was when they first crossed paths? Or does it sound like someone moving through a series of very precise, very deliberate steps toward a clearly defined destination? That debate has detonated across social media, and the timeline, when laid out carefully, is what keeps pulling people back in. Now look at the official explanation that was released about the Air Force Academy appointment. The public framing is deeply emotional and carefully constructed. According to the statement, a grieving widow is stepping forward to honor her husband's legacy by inspiring the next generation of military service members. What White House spokeswoman Olivia Wales stated, President Trump made the perfect choice in appointing Erika Kirk to the Air Force Academy Board of Visitors. Charlie Kirk served proudly on the board, inspiring not only the next generation of service members, but millions around the world with his bold Christian faith, defense of the truth, and deep love of country. Erika Kirk will continue his legacy and will be a fearless advocate for the most elite air power force in the history of the world, whose warriors keep our nation safe, strong, and free. On the surface, that statement lands with emotional resonance for people who admired Charlie Kirk. But after months of documented claims and resurfaced evidence about Erika's background, critics online say that grieving widow framing no longer holds up under scrutiny.
I have respect for the individuals that are in the pornography industry, not because they're degrading women or anything like that, but because that's their field and they are professionals. So I give them credit for being able to have a job and make money and stimulate the economy that way. But I think that there needs to be a way to shield it from the overall public, such as kids, keep it away from them. But in general, that's a tough one. I really have to say that we live in a free country. So if you want to watch it, turn on your pay-per-view. If not, then why don't you turn on something else that's a little bit more G-rated?
Now, they argue it reads less like an authentic description of someone's motivation and more like a carefully engineered cover story designed to neutralize questions before they even get asked. Skeptics say the first move is to set aside the emotional packaging entirely and look directly at the timeline and the pattern. And that pattern begins with the Miss Arizona USA title Erika won in 2012, a competition that was at the time part of the Miss Universe organization owned by Donald Trump. Supporters frame this as a glamorous early chapter in a conventional entertainment career, but critics are reading it through a completely different lens. They argue that pageant environments have historically attracted the attention of powerful networks specifically because of what successful contestants represent. Polished, photogenic, these socially precise individuals who can move through elite spaces without generating friction, handle intense pressure without cracking publicly, and project a flawless image regardless of what is happening beneath the surface. In high-stakes social environments where first impressions and the ability to influence people quietly are paramount, those qualities are not just attractive, they are operationally useful. Critics argue that beauty pageants have historically served as talent identification environments for networks looking for individuals with exactly that combination of attributes. For people already asking questions about Erika's trajectory, that background suddenly reads less like a conventional entertainment start and more like a deliberate entry point into a world of influential connections. And then the theory sharpens further. Some investigators are not asking whether Erika was simply a pageant contestant who happened to make useful connections. They are asking whether she was strategically positioned inside that environment from the beginning, placed there with a specific purpose in a specific direction. That suspicion gains additional heat when critics point to her family background, which they argue appears closely connected to military and intelligence-adjacent circles.
Charlie, we've pushed back against the media on COVID, on lockdowns, on Ukraine, on the border, so maybe we should also ask a question. Is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says, because I know I've been conditioned to ask a lot more critical questions over the last couple of years.
That connection, they claim, adds meaningful context to everything that followed. After the pageant chapter, Erika reportedly began describing herself professionally as a casting director, traveling to Romania, China, and Costa Rica, and describing those trips as connected to humanitarian work helping people in crisis situations. And that description immediately raised eyebrows among people examining her timeline, because critics say there is no clear public record of formal credentials, institutional affiliations, or documented experience in that kind of work. The gap between the professional title she was using and any verifiable track record supporting it made the whole chapter feel difficult to accept at face value. Then the timeline pivots again. Erika reportedly transitioned into real estate, specifically joining the Corcoran Group, despite critics once again pointing to no visible background or training in that industry. And this is where online investigators say the connections start getting genuinely difficult to dismiss as coincidental. The Corcoran Group has appeared in public reporting connected to properties tied to Jeffrey Epstein. The firm's former CEO, Pamela Liebman, has been referenced in discussions surrounding those records. And critics also note that Liebman has been reported as a supporter of American Friends of Magen David Adom, a U.S.-based nonprofit that raises funds for Israel's national emergency medical services.
I'm there thinking it's a business interview.
It started that way.
Right. So we sit down and you grill me for 3 hours?
Yeah.
Easily. On philosophy, politics,
Culture.
Religion, culture.
Economics.
What else? Everything else you can imagine, he grilled me. Anything he talks about on his podcast show, he grilled me on.
Critics presenting this theory are careful to acknowledge that individual connections can be coincidental in isolation. But their argument is that when these connections are stacked, the Epstein-adjacent property firm, the CEO's reported associations, the Israel-connected nonprofit, what emerges looks less like a random series of career pivots and more like movement through a specific interconnected network of powerful relationships. Whether those links carry operational significance is debated. But the speculation online is not slowing down. It is getting louder with every new piece that surfaces. During that same general period, Erika was becoming active in political circles alongside her longtime associate Tyler Bauer. Photographs circulating online show Erika with her mother, Lori Franzi, and Tyler Bauer at a Trump rally in Phoenix, Arizona in 2015. Another image posted by Bauer on Facebook shows him standing alongside Erika and a family member of Israel's prime minister, with a caption that explicitly referenced introducing the group to AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. That photograph has become one of the most referenced pieces of evidence among online investigators mapping out the network of relationships surrounding her story. Then came the introduction to Charlie Kirk, the young, rapidly ascending leader of Turning Point USA, who was in the process of building one of the most significant conservative activist networks in the country. Some critics describe that meeting as far from accidental.
Walk through the door, drop his bags, daddy's home, take his phone, Friday night, Shabbat Shalom, throw it in the junk drawer. Charlie and I have always been very clear on our stance. Israel, Jewish people.
In intelligence community terminology, they suggest it resembles what analysts describe as a directed meeting, a carefully arranged encounter engineered to appear organic while serving a specific strategic purpose. And they argue that during those early conversations, Erika demonstrated an unusually precise understanding of exactly what Charlie wanted to hear. Not the general instinct of someone trying to make a good impression, but something that felt more like studied preparation. From that point, the timeline accelerates dramatically. Charlie and Erika became close with a speed that surprised people observing the relationship develop. Supporters describe it as two people in the same political world naturally gravitating toward each other. Skeptics describe it as a relationship that moved through normal developmental stages at an abnormal pace. And they point out that Charlie was not simply a rising conservative voice at the time. He was running an organization with genuine reach across American college campuses, with direct connections to major donors, Washington power brokers, and influential political institutions. Getting inside that circle meant access to one of the most valuable political networks being built in the country. Charlie and Erika were engaged by December 2020, married by May 2021, and started a family shortly thereafter. To critics, pushing this theory say the velocity is not incidental. It is itself a data point. Moving quickly, building deep emotional trust rapidly, and securing a permanent position inside a target's personal and professional life before any doubts can crystallize is, according to their framework, a fundamental operational principle. Speed reduces the window during which questions can be asked and answered. Supporters point out that fast relationships and quick engagements happen constantly in the real world without any operational dimension whatsoever. That counter-argument is legitimate and worth holding. But critics respond by pointing to what allegedly happened when Charlie began noticing things that didn't align, when he reportedly started asking questions about the people and financial structures around him. And they reference September 10th as the pivotal moment in the timeline, arriving just 48 hours before a shocking public incident that unfolded on a live stream. And then they ask the question they consider most important: who benefits in the immediate aftermath? Erika stepped into the CEO role at Turning Point USA with striking speed. She began publicly shaping the narrative around who Charlie was, what he believed, and what direction the movement he built should take going forward. Critics argue that whoever controls Turning Point USA controls something considerably more significant than a single organization. They control a political machine with massive messaging infrastructure, deep donor relationships, and direct influence over tens of thousands of young activists being cultivated as the next generation of conservative leadership across the country. That is not a small prize. That is a platform capable of shaping American political culture for decades. And now, the appointment to the Air Force Academy Board of Visitors has become what critics describe as the final and most alarming chapter in what they believe is a long-running influence operation reaching its completion. The Board of Visitors is not a ceremonial position with symbolic significance and no real operational weight. It carries genuine oversight authority over morale, discipline, and portions of the curriculum at one of America's premier military academies. The cadets being shaped inside that environment are the future pilots, commanders, and strategic decision-makers of the United States Air Force, the individuals who will eventually operate the country's most advanced aerial weapon systems, manage critical defense infrastructure, and make decisions with enormous national security implications. Critics ask the hypothetical that they argue cannot be easily dismissed. If a foreign intelligence service wanted to establish long-term influence over how America's future military leaders think, what framework they operate within, and what values shape their decision-making, what more effective position could exist than an advisory seat connected to the institution where those leaders are being formed? The influence would not be immediate or obvious. It would be slow, gradual, and almost impossible to detect, shaping perspectives across years and decades, not embedding certain assumptions deep inside the institutional culture, long before those cadets rise to the senior command roles where their thinking becomes consequential. Nobody can state with certainty that Erika Kirk is a trained foreign operative executing a deliberate long-term infiltration strategy. That conclusion has not been established through public evidence, and it is important to be clear about that boundary. But critics argue with increasing volume that when the full timeline is laid out, the pageant world entry point, the unexplained international travel, the real estate firm with Epstein-adjacent connections, the AI pack photograph, the directed introduction to Charlie, the velocity of the relationship, the immediate post-death power consolidation, and now the Air Force Academy appointment, the pattern that emerges is not random. It is structured, it is directional, and it arrives somewhere that demands serious, formal scrutiny rather than dismissal. The question circulating online is no longer fringe speculation confined to conspiracy forums. It has moved into mainstream conservative commentary and is being asked by people with significant platforms and documented investigative track records. If even a portion of what critics are alleging has operational substance, the implications extend well beyond one organization or one appointment. They reach into the heart of how America's political and military institutions are being accessed, influenced, and potentially compromised from within. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share this with someone who needs to see it. And make sure you're subscribed. because this story is developing fast and the next chapter may be the most significant one yet.